This is reposted.
Contrary to public opinion, Guy Kawasaki was the original evangelist, not Billy Graham. Guy, of course, one of the original bigwigs at Apple when they exploded on the scene with the Mac. He's done it all. Co-founder of Garage Technology Ventures, big investment firm in the Valley. He's got a slew of books, my favorite being The Art of the Start, also The Macintosh Way, and his latest, The Wise Guy. He's a speaker, a podcaster, a hockey player, and I'm just going to say it, an all-around nice guy. Hello there, Guy.
Yeah, hi, thank you. First, let's set the record straight. You know, there was Jesus, and then there was a 2,000-year gap, and then there were evangelists at the Macintosh division.
Okay.
Billy Graham, you could make the case was in there, yes.
Okay.
I don't know about Franklin Graham, but Billy Graham.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so I don't know if you noticed, but it seems like the world's going to hell in a handbasket. There's a
You think?
pandemic. Yeah, the market's a little fragile. The political scene's a mess. What are you telling people?
Details.
Yeah, what are you telling people that are calling you right now about like starting a business or maybe switching jobs or like what the hell? What are you telling people about surviving right now?
I wish I had the magic answer. I tell them that, first of all, the sort of sports metaphor you should have in your mind is that we're in a marathon, not a sprint. And so it's not a 100-yard dash or a 100-meter dash. It's more like a 26-mile, slog it out. And maybe it's a marathon plus a decathlon because you have to be skilled in many things. But it's definitely, on November 1st, there's not going to be a magic vaccine and the pandemic goes away. There's no friggin' way. I mean, I will be a professional hockey player before that happens on November 1st. So that's what I tell people. And you can, it's very difficult situation, tragic in many cases, 180,000 deaths or something, which is merely 3 Vietnam Wars, if you think about it. And yet the pandemic is going to force a lot of changes that I think 10 years from now we'll look back and say, wow, it turned out to be a good thing in certain areas, such as education, such as digitization, virtual meetings, things like that. And for us who don't get the virus, but we are sheltering in place and, obeying what at least some parts of our government are telling us, I think we spend a lot more time with our family, which, would not have happened, honestly.
Yeah, so you mentioned there's so much change happening right now, and a lot of times you talk about the 2x2 grid of valuable and unique. Is there advice you would give to people right now with changes and finding new ways in life to remain or find themselves in the top right corner of that grid?
Yeah, also for listeners who may not understand what the hell we're talking about, I tell people that the secret to life is a 2x2 grid. The vertical axis is uniqueness or differentiation. The horizontal axis is the value of what you can do. So all of life is to be a unique source of something very valuable, whether that's a product, service, person, or spouse. It's to be unique and valuable. And I think right now in a pandemic, this is an opportunity to do all the dirty jobs you didn't do, you couldn't do before, you never had a chance to. Arguably you're getting a couple hours back every day from not commuting. Although I have to say that, the concept that, everybody's got 2 more hours in the day, except that they're at home trying to ensure that their kids are getting an education online, which is more than a full-time job. Mm. So it's not clear to me, net, you're getting hours back per day. And evidence I would cite for that is I have this podcast called Remarkable People. And I thought, oh my God, in a pandemic, Remarkable People subscriber is just going to boom because people have more time to listen to podcasts. But even citing my own case, I used to listen to a lot of podcasts, but I never listen to podcasts anymore because guess what? I'm not driving. So I never drive more than 3 miles anyway. And, with some people's podcasts, in 3 miles, you won't even get through the introduction. So now, when you come home and you may be at home 24 hours a day, but it's not like you're sitting around wondering, what should I do? Because my kids are, they're all straight A students and they don't have to take the SAT anymore. And, everything is clean in the house and all the meals are prepared. So, now I'll just sit around and listen to a podcast while I do yoga. Yeah, that ain't happening.
Yeah, Guy, I love this. You quit Apple twice, You
Yes.
turned Steve Jobs down himself to go work there for a third time. You
Yes.
basically turned down the job to be CEO at Yahoo back in the early days. What are we
Yes.
supposed to take from you and your job decisions?
I'm a dumbass. I mean, that's the only. I'm a dumbass, and that's why I still have to be on podcasts.
Oh, come on.
I have a question. Something you talk about is you want to enable people to pay. You want to enable people to pay you back by telling them like how they can pay you back, so you can set the
Yes.
slate clean and then move forward with a stronger relationship. What do you mean by that? Like, how has
Okay.
that benefited
So
you?
I think I'm a big believer in defaulting to yes and helping people, and I think that there's both a karmic scoreboard, and you will be amazed that the person that you help 10 years later is now the West Coast bureau chief of the Wall Street Journal. And before, when you met him or her, he was in some high school newspaper, right? And 10 years later, the guy or the gal's running the Wall Street Journal. So there's that. And I also have this theory. Actually, I stole this theory from Bob Cialdini. It's in his book called Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion. So basically, he says that, pay it forward, do stuff, default to yes, but then you should enable people to pay you back. Because when someone owes you and they know they owe you, they might want to ask you to do more, but they hesitate because they think they already owe you. And you might be perfectly willing to help that person more, but that person isn't asking and you're not clairvoyant. So you're stuck. That person wants you to do more. You don't know what that person wants to do, though you're willing to. So what you should do is you should enable people to pay you back to clear off the scoreboard, and then you can start all over. And believe it or not, you're doing both of you a favor, because that other person probably wants to pay you back and can't figure out how to pay you back. So you guys can buy me a gift certificate at Amazon. How's that?
Hey, it's perfect because my favor for you is coming in a second. I'm going to hold on to it. My favor is coming.
Wait,
You're the
to me or you want from me?
I need a favor. I think you can make it happen. And then I'll pay you back in the Amazon gift card because it's totally worth it. You're the perfect person to ask this because you give speeches all the time, but you're also hearing. But you're also, you used to in the old days, but you're also hearing speeches. People are pitching you on their business all the time. Like, what's that piece of advice you give to someone about communication in business?
Well, I think the most important piece of advice that just about everybody violates is they take too freaking long to get to the point. And I'll use an airplane analogy. There are two extremes of airplanes, right? So one is this like C5A, 787, Airbus 340, takes 2 or 3 miles of runway to get off. At the other extreme, you have an F-18. It's on the USS Stennis or the USS Nimitz. It's got 150 meters to take off. If it doesn't get off, it goes into the ocean and you die. Okay, so those are the two extremes. And most people are a C5A, 787, or Airbus, A340 or whatever that number is. Yeah. And so they start off their pitch or their meeting with, my relatives came over on the Mayflower. Like, I give a shit if your parents or grandparents or great-grandparents came over on the Mayflower. And then they settled in Massachusetts. And they opened up a, liquor store in Massachusetts. And then, they gave a building to MIT. And so I'm an MIT graduate. And after I graduated from MIT, I interned at Goldman Sachs one summer. And the next summer, I interned at Google. And I took classes in PHP and Python and data analytics. And then I went to work for Goldman Sachs, where I was an analyst. And then I met my co-founder at Goldman Sachs when we got drunk one night in a New York bar. And he also is from a family. He went to Dartmouth and I went to MIT. And he's taken .NET classes with Microsoft. He's interned at Accenture. And like, you're going down the runways like, hey, 3 miles later, you're telling me what you do. I could care less about your background. Your background is totally irrelevant to me unless I like your idea. And ironically, if I like your idea, I probably don't care about your background. So I think many people are trying to, build this case that reaches a crescendo and lifts off. And what they should think of is they got 150 meters. They're strapped into an F-18. The F-18 is connected to this catapult, and the guy on the deck is going rah, 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 and he points, and you take off, and you either get off or you die. And that's what it's like.
I think most people think of you as the Apple evangelist. You're a VC guy, TED talker, you listen to your podcast, but you're a Deep Valley guy. But you say none of this happens if you weren't a jeweler first. What did you learn from being a jewelry guy?
Well, I don't know about none of it would happen, but what happened for me is that I went to Stanford, and after Stanford, I attended law school, mostly because my father and mother wanted me to be a lawyer. That's kind of the Japanese American dream. But I hated law school, so I quit after 2 weeks, and I went back to Hawaii. And the following year, I went to UCLA to get an MBA, which I was much more interested in business than law. So while I was at UCLA had 4 days of classes per week, and the fifth day was off. And so I came from a lower middle class family, so I had to get a job. So I got a job, believe it or not, counting diamonds, like literally counting diamonds for a company in downtown LA. And after I graduated, when all my friends were going to Wells Fargo and Arthur Anderson and Bank of America, I went to this jewelry company that nobody ever heard of. But at the jewelry company, I started in sales and marketing. And sales and marketing in a jewelry company, it's not about doing A/B tests. Okay, so let's look at our homepage. Should we make the link blue or red? Should we have the taupe background or the white background or the slate gray background? Let's do A/B testing. In the jewelry business, we were a manufacturer. We sold to retailers. So it was hand-to-hand combat. I mean, you go to Kansas City, you get off the airplane, you go to Tivoli in Tivoli Plaza, and you open up your suitcase, and they start ripping you and telling you this is too expensive, this is too ugly, this is too and these are the nice people. Tivoli's great people. And so what I learned was how to sell. And I mean selling person to person, analog, mano a mano. And that was a very useful skill for the rest of my life, because I think life boils down to you're either making something or you're selling something. So if you can't be an engineer, you better be good at selling.
The one and only Guy Kawasaki. He is a wonderful Twitter follow. He's talking about the podcast, which is great. You can find Guy on the Twitters at Guy Kawasaki. Guy, thank you for taking a couple of minutes with us today.
It's my pleasure.